Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Black Women Amplified, the podcast. Your host, Monica Wisdom Tyson, brings you downloadable conversations that matter to women around the globe. We discuss all things Black girl magic, amplify our voices, and transform our challenges into triumphs. Monica calls on her league of extraordinary women to push our boundaries, share their expertise, and stories of personal transformation. Welcome your host of Black Women Amplified, Monica Wisdom Tyson.
Welcome to the Black Women Amplified podcast, where we celebrate the brilliance, resilience, and artistry of Black women shaping the world. I'm your host, Monica Wisdom, and today we have an extraordinary guest who embodies what it means to lead with passion and purpose. Tasha Larae is an international recording artist whose soulful house and R&B vocals spark joy and movement wherever they are heard. From her roots in Nebraska to becoming a global sensation based in Atlanta, she has carved out her own path, one song, one stage, and one connection at a time. 10 years ago, she brought her gifts to the iconic hip-hop group Arrested Development, while delivering her uplifting house music anthems like Finding a Way and her latest full-length album, Tasha. She creates music for people in motion. Today, we explore Tasha's story, her roots, her rise, and the wisdom she has gained along the way. Get ready to be inspired by this powerhouse of talent and positivity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this amazing, incredible artist to the Black Women Amplified podcast. I am so excited today. We have a very special guest in the building, Miss Tasha Larae. How are you today, beautiful?
I am doing wonderful, gorgeous. How are you?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you are a busy touring artist.
But not too busy to talk with you. I'm excited about it.
I am excited too. I am very excited. Now, you are the lead singer of the pioneering hip hop group Arrested Development. Cheer, 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 cheer.
Yeah.
But that's only part of your story. You are also a songwriter, an entrepreneur, as well as a multifaceted artist. But let's go back to the beginning. Who was younger Tasha? And tell us about the community that raised you.
I love this question. So I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. I was born and raised there, and I pretty much stayed in Nebraska until I was about age 19. So during those first 19 years, I grew up, it was a single family home. My mom raised my sister and and me. And I have one younger sister. And then about 18 years later, I now had a younger brother as well. But
all right.
But I know, right? But it was like we grew up in a house that loved music, but my mother was religious, or I'll say spiritual, I'm gonna say religious, but my grandfather is a Methodist minister. So, being in the church and hearing like hymnals and stuff like that, that was some of my earlier introduction to music as far as church goes. And then later we joined the AME church, and then later a Baptist church, and then non-denominational. So those are all like very different styles of music, but I still got the education of music and the church and all that stuff. So I had a nice, well-rounded view of music. But outside of that, we listen to some what church folk call secular music. So the popular artists in R&B and soul and funk and blues, jazz, all of that, a lot of that music played throughout our house. So I grew up loving music. I had my own insecurities. So the idea of singing in front of anybody terrified me. But once I got a little bit older, when I saw the movie Sister Act 2, and I saw Lauryn Hill and LaTanya Blunt, I think is her last name.
Tanya Blunt, yeah.
When I saw that scene of the two of them at the piano, singing His Eyes on the Sparrow, at that moment, it clicked for me. And I was like, I want to do what they're doing. And so that's what really sparked the drive in me to want to become a professional singer and songwriter. And, I wanted to do television and other things, travel the world, all of that. But yeah, that's kind of that. Yeah, sorry, I got long-winded.
It's all good. You have a remarkable story. Now, I'm a Midwestern girl, but I don't know much about Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
Tell me about Omaha. What is that environment like?
So if you've been since you're from the Midwest has a vibe to it. And Omaha very much has that vibe. It's kind of raw, but there's a sense of community, but it's almost like this collective, there's a certain level of struggle that everybody is enduring, and we're enduring this thing together. Of course, there's pockets of the city where there's more affluent folks, but for the most part, the lower to middle class, there's a certain vibe that happened. I don't know a better way to describe it. I'm sorry. But at the time when I was experiencing it, it didn't feel like poverty. We was just living our lives. So, especially in the areas where I work, there are a lot of Black people, which a lot of people don't think there's a lot of Black people in Omaha.
Right. That's why I asked the question.
Plenty.
I'm like, so tell me.
There are plenty. But there's also an Air Force base. So Offutt Air Force Base is there. So there are a lot of people who come through because of the military. So the high school that I went to is very diverse. And I feel like it prepared me for the lifestyle that I live because I have friends that are scattered all around the world. So it's very culturally diverse in certain areas. But yeah, there are a lot more Black people in Nebraska than you would think.
Now, you later moved to Atlanta, which is the South. So let me ask you this. Did your family move to Omaha, or were they rooted in the South? Or were they rooted in Omaha?
So actually, my family is rooted in the South. So my family is originally from Lexington, Mississippi. But when my grandfather in particular, when he got a little bit older and he started preaching in the Methodist church, what they do is they send you to different churches and you only stay in these churches for about 6 months to a year before they move you to a different location. So by the time my family moved from Mississippi to Missouri, they were in, I think Kansas City, Independence, they moved around a lot. But then by the time they moved to Omaha, my mom was a teen. She was 18, 19. And so she ended up meeting my dad there. And so then my grandparents continued to move on. But then my mom started to build her family in Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So love got you to Nebraska.
Love got me to Nebraska, child. At least that's what we're going to call it, love. I don't know what they called it, but we're going to call it love.
We're going to call it love.
Girl, yeah. So then after my sister graduated high school, my mom was like, okay, honey, y'all pack up your stuff. We moving to Georgia. And that's how I got here.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So did you move to Atlanta or Georgia, the outskirts?
So we moved to Snellville, which is a suburb of Atlanta. It's about between 30 and 40 minutes away from the city. And it was different environment. A lot about just living in the city was different. This city versus Omaha is two totally different things. So it was an adjustment, but yeah.
So you knew about the whole music scene in Atlanta because you were there. But why did you decide to stay there as opposed to going to LA or New York, where most people would go to?
So the first thing that immediately captured me when I moved to Georgia was the amount of Black people that were young, that were doing very well for themselves, because that wasn't something that I saw in Omaha. So when I started meeting friends, they were early 20s. They owned their own homes already. Some of them had cars that were paid for. Some of them had college degrees and they were professors at colleges, or one friend was an architect, an engineer. And I'm just like, y'all got real jobs. And that just wasn't something that I saw on a regular basis in Omaha. And so I loved how being in Atlanta made me feel. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. And there's something in me that feels like this is home. I wish I had a better way to explain that as well, but it's just there's some type of connection that I feel here. I don't know if I'll stay here forever or if I'll move to another place, but this felt like a great place to call home. and then to move from here and travel the world. So now I can go and explore and see other parts of the world. And then I get to come back to this place and still feel inspired.
I understand. I'm from St. Louis, and so we had our city when I was growing up was very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So one side of town was black, one side of town was white.
Yep.
So, but when I went to Atlanta, it was like
right.
all this blackness, like all kinds. So I get
Everywhere.
It was, we couldn't wait. We would hit the highway and go through Tennessee to get to Atlanta and couldn't wait to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely understand it. But how did that, for you as a woman, being around that level of blackness and black excellence, as people say, I just call it blackness. But how did it shape you as far as your artistry and as well as yourself personally?
So the first thing that it taught me to do was to think bigger for myself and for my dreams. I had this narrow view of what was possible for my life. And it just came because I had only lived in one city and I'd only seen people go so far. So it's like the environment that you put yourself in is really important. And so when I saw the people that I saw that was doing so many great things for themselves, that cared about their community, they were creating organizations and programs and opportunities to help other people, it expanded my view of the world and how I could be of service to others. And I didn't know I had a limited view until I got around people whose view was much more expansive than mine. And that was the first thing. Also, it made me want to be a better person all the way around. And so, like, once I finished high school, I was in college for doing music, but I really just wanted to be a performer. So I didn't see myself graduating college with a degree. I was like, I'm gonna stay here long enough until I can get on somebody's tour or something, and I'm out of school, you know? But it made me want to really think about what area I could get a degree in, and then still be able to do my love for music and all that stuff, but be more strategic, have more of a business mind, and also think about how what I create can impact others.
So did you go through that self-discovery while you were in college?
Not really. It didn't, because the first half of what I was thinking actually happened. I went to school, like I did a year of school in Nebraska. And then when we moved to Georgia, I went to Georgia Perimeter College just to take the general classes, because once I moved here, all of a sudden I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was still 19 at the time. So I went to Georgia Perimeter, and then I met a gospel artist that was looking for background vocals. And so I started traveling, singing background for her. And she was going somewhere every weekend, and we were traveling all across the US. So eventually, once I finished all the main classes, since I still hadn't picked a major, I just stopped going to school and I was just traveling. And so then I started learning the music business in real time. And then going from one artist to another artist, singing background vocals, writing for other artists, I started learning and discovering myself as I traveled the world doing something that I love to do. Life, really, the world became my school. And that's how I started learning more about myself and discovering who I was, what I wanted, and what I had to offer.
Now, was there a time, even though you were in the industry, you were doing your thing, were there times that you felt doubt or you almost gave up on your music? And what are the things that kept you grounded in, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm. So every other day, I wanted to give up. About it's 2 like times a day.
Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay. At least Tuesday and Thursday, I was doubting myself 100%. Like, that really is a part of the cycle of being an artist. And really, it's not even limited to music. It's pretty much anything. I was like, I feel like I am an imposter. And one day somebody is going to discover that I really don't know what I'm doing. I just open my mouth and start singing something and hoping the right thing come out. Same thing with songwriting. Didn't know what I was doing. I just picked up a pen. And at the time when I started writing music, I was working at Payless shoe stores. Now I'm dating myself because I don't even think Payless is in business anymore. But I was working at
All right,
FedEx.
Gen X. I see you, Gen X.
Okay. And I pulled some of the register tape, stuff the paper that people print the receipts on. I pulled some of that off and I started writing song lyrics on the paper. That's how I started writing songs. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing stuff. And it just so happened that people liked it. So yeah, to sum up my answer, there's been plenty of times that I've doubted myself and wanted to quit and give up, especially when I worked really hard to do something and I turned something in and it was rejected. Or I released a song and it didn't get the reception that I was hoping for. Or even after all the fanfare, you do all these great things, you hear all of this great response from people, but it doesn't equate to being enough money that I can pay a bill. So those moments definitely happen, but it literally is a part of the life cycle of being an artist. And you have to develop tools to help coach yourself through it so that you don't let it stop you from pursuing what you really want to do, especially prematurely. You don't want to do that.
So what are some of the tools that you use? What is your personal toolkit to keep you going from one moment to the next?
I love this question. So it's a combination of things. First in my toolkit are my close circle of friends. If I have a moment where I need to talk my feelings out so that I express them so it's not pent up, I have friends that are a safe space for me to share what I'm thinking. And then after I share it, then it's like, okay, do you believe the stuff that you just said? They help me process through that stuff. And then they also speak life into me. And I do the same thing for them. Another thing I like to do is sometimes I just put my pens down and, turn the music off and I'll go for a walk or I'll go to the gym or just crafting. I love crafting. I'll just find things to do to allow my brain to just be, whether it's, if I paint or if I make a pair of earrings or, whatever it is. I just allow myself the space to just be Tasha, not nothing else for nobody else, just be me and to regroup. Because most of the time, like those negative thoughts come when you're starting to feel burnt out. And yeah, so my circle of friends is number one. Going for a walk or doing something that brings me joy is number two. And then the third thing that I like to do is I try to do this. It's not always easy, but sitting still to meditate. Meditating is not easy, but just sitting still and being quiet is important. And I know some meditation, people think you have to quiet your mind and not think anything. And that's just impossible to do that. It just is. But you can allow yourself to just sit still and just breathe. And that has helped me tremendously.
Now, do you have a technique that you've learned or you just sit still and breathe?
So I started with the Calm app, right? Have you heard of that before? The Calm app?
Yes.
Okay. So I started with that. The problem with that is I put it on and then I'm doing other things as I'm listening to it. And that's not how it's supposed to work.
That's not how that works.
Exactly. So I'll be listening to that. So what I started doing was I tried the first time, as soon as I wake up, I sit on the edge of my bed and I just breathe. And I do that for as long as I can before my brain is like, okay, now you got to do this, you got to do that, So I don't put a time limit on how long I allow myself to do that, but I just do that. And then I find other pockets in the day where I'm just like, okay, you know what? Let me sit still. Let me breathe. If I'm in line, like especially unexpectedly, like if I go if I'm going to Chipotle or something and there's a longer line than I anticipated, I use that to just breathe. Or sitting in traffic or, those types of things. You just find moments in the day where you allow yourself to not have to do anything but exist. And so that's what breathing represents for me. So yeah, it's not scientifically proven. I don't have nothing to back it up. But that's what I do.
I think there is a science to it.
Well,
especially when you're able.
I don't know what it is. I don't know it.
In the midst of your day, if you're able to disconnect from the world,
mm-hmm.
and have a conversation or nothingness with your inner world, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to have a brain break.
Yes. Okay. Our brains are probably one of the things that work the most.
Mm-hmm. And to tap, especially as an artist, to tap into your creativity and your imagination, you need that. You definitely need that.
Yeah.
You definitely need that time for yourself. Now, all of that actually does shine in your work. Your work has this definite sense of purpose. Your music does, especially in
Thank
songs
you.
like Clarity and Before You Lose. I love those songs. I was yesterday, sidebar,
Uh-huh.
audience, as we're speaking, this is the day after the election. So yesterday was, we both talked about this previously, our day of
Hmm.
getting ourselves together. And one of the things I did was put on your music to center myself
Oh,
because I
wow.
knew I had to center myself and recalibrate.
I know the feeling. Let me tell you, like, you just saying that for me, like, that is confirmation that everything that I've ever endured to release music was worth it. Because I never wanted to get on stage for the sake of, look at me and look what I can do. I wanted to make sure that I created something that somebody could use to help them to move forward in whatever it is that they wanted to do. That's the heart behind everything that I create, whether it's music or anything else. So I appreciate you saying that to me because that lets me know, like, okay, Tasha, don't give up. What you're doing is working. You know what I mean? And I need that because some days I'll be like, you know what? That's it. I'm about to go be an accountant. I'm about to go do something else.
But let me tell you, this is the perfect time for you to put together a compilation and re-release some of your old music because
Yes.
it is, I'm telling you, it yesterday was hard. And we've all been through stuff. We've all been through hard times, but it was something about a collective moment that you could feel not only what you were going through, but what everybody else was going through,
Mm.
especially if you're empathic or you feel other people's energy. So everybody felt it. So yeah, thank you for your music because it did help me like, okay,
Hey,
it's gonna
man.
be
Thank you.
okay.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Hello, Black Women Amplified family. I got a little story for you. Years ago, a friend taught me how to do vision boards, and this was long before The Secret. And I started doing them, taking pictures, cutting them out of magazines of the life that I wanted. But what I realized was by the end of the year, nothing happened. Nothing manifested, nothing came to light. So in my inquisitive brain, I said, well, what's really going on? And what I discovered is I needed to work on myself. I needed to clear some things out, do some forgiveness work, let some things go in order to prepare myself for the dreams and the lifestyle that I wanted. And then it began to work. I manifested a trip to Ghana, and all of these different things started to happen. And by the end of the year, almost everything had come true on my vision board. And I took that information and created a training called the MVP process. And in this process, you're able to refine your vision as well as discover more about yourself in a self-discovery journey and set attainable goals for yourself. And I wanted this information to move beyond the training into your home. So I created a journal. And this journal is called the Audacious AF Dream Bigger Blueprint. And it takes you through that self-discovery journey as well as a space for you to set those attainable goals. But it also includes an affirmations coloring book that you can get your coloring pencils, your coloring pens, and create art that affirms who you are every single day. Here's the thing. It comes in two different forms. You can get the digital version that comes directly to your email, or you can order a printed version, which you can get a link from my website to either my space where you can order it or the Barnes & Noble website. Big dream come true. I'm equated with a major book outlet. So dreams do come true. The process does work, and I want you to have it today. So visit www.blackwomenamplified.com and be prepared to live your best life yet. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. The first time I heard your music was on the dance floor.
Ooh. Okay.
Yes, because I love house music. So the first time I heard your music was on the dance floor. The second time I heard it, one of my favorite DJs is DJ Spin. And I know that you have put out music on his label. I discovered that you
Mm-hmm.
did that. How did you connect with him, and how did you know that house music was a great vehicle for your sound and your lyrics?
Yes. So I connected with DJ Spin through another vocalist that I was singing background for at the time. Her name is Tracy Hamlin. And she's a big sister to me. I love her dearly, but I spent years singing background for her. And when I let her know that I was recording house music, she was excited because she also sings house. She does more jazz and stuff too, but she also definitely has a beautiful catalog of house music. And she wanted to send one of my songs to Spin just to see what he thought about it, to give me some feedback. And Spin liked the song. And so they released it as a single, kind of as a test to see how their market would react to it. And we got a really positive response from the song. And so I started releasing music, dance music with Quantize. And that was 2016 when I started. And I've been doing it ever since. I discovered that house was for me when one of my friends, he's a music engineer, and or sound engineer, period. He introduced me to house music. He was telling me about it. He played some for me and I liked the music. And he said, I really think your voice would be great at this. And so my world was R&B, and I just needed a little bit of coaching on how to adapt my writing to the style of house so that it works on the dance floor. And so I started recording with him, and then I also started recording with, at the time, his name was DJ Freeze, and now he goes by the Freeze Project, and then also DJ Kemet.
Oh, I know
So
Kemet.
yes, working with the three of them really helped me shape my style for writing for house. But I think it clicked for me that house was where I belonged when I did some songs with DJ Kemet, and I was in the studio with him. And as we were writing, Kemet was like, yeah, Tasha, this is where you belong. And the songs just kept flowing out. But what I loved about house is I felt like it was home. It felt like it accepted me exactly where I was, exactly how I was. And I didn't need to change anything about myself to be this house artist. And to this day, I haven't had to do anything outside of my character in order to be accepted in house. And so for me, it's home.
That's beautiful. I love house music because it is. You show up in jeans and a t-shirt and everybody's
Yeah.
having a good time. There's no
Yeah.
pretense. And it's, the one thing I love about DJ Spin is he does the gospel house. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh, you're just giving me life right now.
Right.
So when I heard your song, I was like, well, who is this girl? And then I discovered, ta-da, you are with the iconic group Arrested Development, which
Yes.
I was like, this is the same person.
Right.
And how did the opportunity to work with this iconic group come about?
So this was about I think it was 2007. I was singing background for a good friend of mine. She was doing something at her church, and they were like having this arts and entertainment thing for people in their church that were involved in the arts in any type of way. And we were singing at this sports bar, and Speech was the DJ. Speech is the co-founder of Arrested Development. And so Speech was DJing, and I sang background for her, and we had a fun time. And then there were other artists who got up to sing, and they didn't have background singers. So myself and my other friend, we started singing background for them. So we just all having a good time. I didn't know this, but that was pretty much part of my audition. So I didn't know this, but Speech at the time, the band was looking for another vocalist to come out on the road with them. And so he knew the girl that I sang background for. Her name is April Showers. Shout out to April. So he contacted April to get my email address. And I woke up to an email the next day asking if I would be interested in auditioning for the group. The funny thing is I thought it was a joke because I didn't give him my email and I hadn't talked to April. So she didn't tell me that she gave them my email. And so I called April like, girl, let me tell you about this email I got. And when she was like, you better hurry up and respond because it's real, I went ahead and did that and then did the audition. And by December of I'm sorry, it was 2008 when I did this, by the way. Sorry. By December of 2008, I started singing with them. I did a couple of shows then, and I was officially touring with the band that following year.
Oh, wow. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah, so it's been a fun ride, girl. Fun ride.
I mean, that's one of God's graceful moments.
Yeah, it really is. But what I loved about it is it shows you that when you're doing what you love to do and you just put yourself out there to do it, the opportunities that are for you will come to you. But it's like you have to take a step of faith out and just do it. I knew I was going to sing background for my friend. I didn't know who else was going to be there. I was just there being myself and loving what I did. And this opportunity presented itself. So it's like you get yourself prepared for what you want, and the opportunities that are there for you are going to come.
Mm-hmm. How did you learn that sense of yourself to be prepared for the opportunities?
I think it was something I realized in hindsight. I don't think I knew it at the time. Really, I was just happy to be out the house. Like when that specific situation happened, I was just happy to be out the house singing. I love doing it. And so I didn't purposefully say, oh, stay ready so you don't got to get ready. Like I didn't really
You were just
adopt
doing
that
what you
mindset
love.
until later. Yeah, I was just doing what I loved.
That's beautiful. Now, Arrested Development has had some incredible powerhouse singers,
Mm-hmm.
including Deion Ferris and Nadir Shakur.
Yeah.
How did you embrace their legacy, but make it truly your own?
Can I just tell you, I love these questions, first of all. I appreciate these so much. So it was very intimidating coming into an already established iconic group and having to fill the shoes of the two women that you mentioned, as well as a few other ones that came before me. My first goal was I couldn't look like a rookie. That was something I told myself. I was like, there's no way I can come into this looking like the weakest link. I have to look like and sound like and carry myself as if I've always been here, because that's where the band is. So it's like I had to grow into this, like I had to rise to the occasion. Especially the song Tennessee, that song is like the national anthem of Arrested Development. And it's just one of those songs that you don't mess it up. And so that was my thing. I was like, I never wanted to mess up this song. And I always wanted to make sure that what I did sounded great, that it was accepted by others, but I also didn't want to lose my identity for it. And so I found ways to sing that. And it was a conversation I even had with Speech. But he's just like, learn how these ladies did it. And then once you get that down, add your own spin to it. And that's what I did. And I'm grateful to those ladies because I do think they also helped me with my own artistry in their own way. It helped to develop who I am as an artist as well.
That's beautiful. That's one thing I've always loved about Arrested Development is it's steeped in our culture,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also about somebody being an individual.
Yes.
So you don't have to be somebody else, but you can be yourself and still sing these incredible songs that we all sing along with you all.
Absolutely.
So you've done a beautiful job making your own space. You've been with them since 2008. That's amazing.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be a part of such a great legacy, not just with the group, but hip hop as a whole?
I have to pinch myself because if it wasn't for Arrested Development, there's not a hip hop bone in my body. As far as like me, producing it, me writing it. Now listening to it growing up, like we grew up in the golden era of hip hop. So I loved hip hop and have much respect for hip hop from that stance. So I feel a mix. At times I'm a fan, and at times I'm like, oh wait, I'm a part of this too. And so I catch myself, especially when we do things like, the 50th anniversary of hip hop, or we just came off of a tour with The Roots. And we did this huge kickoff show at the Hollywood Bowl. And it was people like Queen Latifah and Yo-Yo and Moni Love and gosh, it was so many people comment. I'm trying to think of all these people, but
I
it's
would
like,
have been sitting on the stage,
okay,
like, let me know if y'all get up here.
yes, it was like the far side. And I mean, there were so many people performing, and you were Diggable Planets. I'm like, oh
Oh,
my gosh, I
yes.
am here in front of all of this and watching it. And, you know, to see the Roots and Black Thought and everybody just like doing their thing. It was like, I am here witnessing this, but I'm also a part of it. I got to run on stage right now and then get off stage and be a fan again.
Right.
So it's like, it's a beautiful balance.
So you're on stage with Arrested Development, but like you said, you were a fan of everybody around the event. How did you navigate between being a fan and a performer in the midst of this moment?
So very carefully, I had to, like, I was fangirling all on the inside, but on the outside, you just keep it cool and calm and collected. But I think the one moment where I came unhinged just a little bit, nobody recognized it, but I definitely did it, was when I got to hug Queen Latifah. That woman is so beautiful, just as beautiful on camera. She is even more beautiful in person. And I'm like, for everything that she has done in her career and then just her being herself, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to hug Queen Latifah. This is amazing. But yeah, it's just like I pinch myself and I'm like, this really is my life. And I just remain grateful for it. And no matter how many years I get to do this, no matter how many cities I go to, I just always make sure I maintain an attitude for gratitude. I don't want to ever get so used to this that I take any of it for granted.
Now, you talked about the music industry, how in house music you're able to be yourself, fully yourself. Did you ever have aspirations of being a part of the industry, the big engine, or did you always want to remain an independent artist?
So I always wanted to be on the outside for a couple of reasons. Mainly, I liked the idea of people underestimating you or doubting you just a little bit. So when you go and you do what you do, you're like, yeah, don't sleep on me. There's a piece of me, there's a piece of me that liked that aspect of it. But the bigger piece was I don't like a lot of attention, especially from people I don't know. So the idea of having hundreds of thousands of fans all wanting to be close to me or to like that scared me. I'm an extroverted person when I have to be, but by default, I'm an introverted person. So I wanted to make music that spread far and that reached the masses, you know, hundreds of thousands of millions of people. But I didn't want me to necessarily be around, you know, like, you know,
I didn't want to do it.
You're right.
But I wanted it to do it.
Let this do, you know. So it was because I wanted to maintain my family relationships. I wanted the people around me to be genuine. And I wanted to know that the folks that I interacted with on a regular basis, that they loved me because I'm LaTasha Conway and not because I'm Tasha Larae and these are the people that I'm around and these are the opportunities that I get. And, you know, people, they start to think, oh, she must have this or she must do that or she must know all, you know, and it's like, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. I didn't want that. I wanted to remain a normal person and enjoy the fruits of my labor without feeling like my success has created this prison for me. Because there's some people that are so famous, they can't go to the grocery store, to the post office. You know, they can't just go out with their family and have a good time without being surrounded by, oh, can I have an autograph? Can I take a picture? I love your music. I hate you. You know, like all the stuff people want to say. So yeah, so I wanted to maintain that. So the idea of staying outside the industry was always the goal. But the ironic thing is I wanted the money of being on the inside, but I wanted the autonomy of, I think I used that word right, autonomy. I wanted to be able to stay outside and still be me.
You can still be rich and not famous.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. Rich and not famous. Come on. That's my new TV show, Rich and Not Famous.
Right, rich and not famous. Let's go.
Okay. Let me go on and create some stuff. Y'all didn't know I did it, but you know the product. Let's do that. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
It's like Nadira works with rest his soul, Jimmy Buffett. And she's able to live this big life.
Yes.
And still go to the grocery store. So I know that's important for a lot of people. But here's the thing. Here's my new thing. Being regular is overrated. Just be extraordinary. However that fleshes out, being regular is way overrated.
Uh-huh.
Now
I feel that too.
Just like, I think we, as the seasoned women that we are, we have learned to just do our work and focus on that and make sure it's incredible. But also we live extraordinary lives. Just enjoy it and embrace it and love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we only get one of them. As far as we know.
Right. As far as we know. We'll find out later. But in this moment,
exactly.
We're in this moment. Now you talk about travel and you've been to some amazing places. Tell us some of your favorite spots that you have traveled to. And if you could go back, not working, where would you go back and visit?
So there's a couple of places. My number one favorite place that I've been fascinated with this since I was a teenager is Australia. And Australia was actually the first continent that I got to visit overseas with Arrested Development. And so I was grateful that I had that experience. And we go back there, we visit Australia often. I believe I've been there at least 6 times so far in my life. And every single time I go, I always enjoy it. I always look forward to it. And there's a collective energy of peace. And you hear people say no worries a lot. Now, it's not just in Australia. There's other places in the world where people say the phrase no worries. But I really understood what that meant when I got there. It was like, don't worry about things. Just live and be in the present. So that was something that I learned from being there. But I love visiting Australia and even New Zealand. Usually when we do Australia, we also do New Zealand because they're so close to each other. And so being by the water, I love that. A city that I could see myself living in, I will go back and visit often, and I can't wait to go back and visit this place often, is Brighton. And that is in the UK. It is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. And it's by the water, but there's so many shops and it's all walkable. So you don't even need to necessarily drive. You can just get out and walk. But again, there was a level of peace that was there. And I didn't know I was looking for that. I just, when I get there and I experience it, I loved it and I embraced it. But yeah, those are 2 of the main places that I would go back and visit.
How has traveling shifted your life focus or how you see yourself?
It definitely broadened how I see myself. It also made me aware of the fact that there are other people who have their own issues, concerns, dreams, aspirations, all of those things. And their foundation is different from my foundation. And it doesn't make either one of those foundations wrong. It was a reality check in, especially for me being a Christian. It was a reality check in knowing that there are other people who were born and raised into a different culture or a different religion and all that stuff. And it doesn't make them wrong, but it makes it very interesting for us to interact and have conversations because the things that we can share with each other will enrich our lives. And by doing that, it made me want to learn more and never stop learning. And also to share more things than what I was narrowly focused on, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I try. I try to do that. I try to make sure that I have a wider viewpoint and even a wide range, subject matter of things that I talk about musically. So that's what I strive for.
That's beautiful. The one thing that travel does that. It makes you see other people's, it gives you empathy.
Yeah, it does.
It really gives you empathy because we can believe, I'm a Christian too, especially as Christians, we can believe a certain thing should have to be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet other people that are just as beautiful and kind
Mm-hmm.
and generous, but don't
Yeah,
believe the same things that you do. So you see people
exactly.
from a human perspective, which is great.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, if you could have a conversation with early Latasha,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell her to avoid, and how would you celebrate her?
Wow. Okay, I love this. So I would tell her to avoid taking yourself too seriously, avoid being so caught up in what you think other people think about you that you let it dictate what you do, and avoid allowing doubt and fear to paralyze you from moving forward. The things that I would celebrate is I would tell her to celebrate every accomplishment, big or small, because they all matter. And each one of the steps that you take lead you to where you're trying to go. I would celebrate the fact that you're on your journey. Don't wait until you reach the destination to celebrate. Celebrate now, because the whole life of living, the whole part of living is the actual journey. And I would also celebrate being exactly who I am, flaws and all. Just be who you are right now in every single moment of your life. Celebrate who you are, because you matter. Your existence matters. The voice that you have and the things that you need to say matter. And the world needs it. And the world needs it because it's on the inside of you. If the world didn't need it, it wouldn't be in me. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. We're
Thank you.
all having a moment of looking forward.
Hmm. Right.
What's next? Beyond this moment that we're in, what is it that you still want to accomplish with your career and with yourself personally?
So personally, I want to get married and I want to have children. And I know I'm approaching my mid 40s. Matter of fact, I'll be 44 in a couple of weeks. But I still have this strong desire to be married or have children, us raise our family. I wanted to live out my dreams and then have a family and teach my children to do the same thing. And I wanted to teach them from a place of, this isn't what I heard, it's what your mama lived. This is what we do. And so I wanted to do that. And I feel like I'm at a point in my life now where I'm ready for that. And career wise, I want to do more with film and television, specifically songwriting and film and television. So writing commercials, doing songs and stuff for commercials for products that I love, and, song jingles, especially for sitcoms. I really think and wish sitcoms will go back to having theme songs. We love those.
Mm-hmm.
But doing, more things like that with film and television and song placements. And as far as being able to travel and tour, I love doing it. I enjoy it, but I would love to be at a point where I do it for the enjoyment or there's a specific purpose, and not because I have to financially, not because my back is up against the wall and it's my only option. Because I would love to be able to travel and to bring my family, and we all have like this wonderful experience and a learning, experience that lasts us all for a lifetime.
Mm, that sounds doable.
And okay.
That
Yes,
sounds
indeed.
very doable. Now we've learned about your early childhood. We see your aspirations for the future. What is happening in your world right now?
So right now, I am about 9 months away from earning my bachelor's degree in marketing.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I've been working diligently with that. And, I have a jewelry business that I run, a t-shirt company. And in this moment, I am just, I don't know. I guess you could say it's a transition, but I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, that's it. I wish I had a better answer. I don't.
I think we're all in that evolutionary period of our lives where we've done this and we ask ourselves what's next,
Yeah.
and we just start to explore what's
Hmm.
next.
Yeah.
know what's
Absolutely.
next. And with all of your experiences, there's so many industries that would just eat up your knowledge.
Yes, I wish we could figure out one of them.
You know, if you want to be a creative director for a company or work for an advertising agency, there's lots of directions you can go into.
Absolutely. And there's funny you mentioned creative direction. That's something I've been exploring more to learn more about that and what that entails. Because I think that'd be something I would enjoy doing. So I love that you mentioned that.
So before we go, you have had such a remarkable career. You've seen the world. You've seen it through many different genres of music, from R&B to house to hip hop,
Mhm.
and have been in it in such an incredible way. If you could choose one song that is the soundtrack of your life, what would it be?
Right now. Oh, wait. Is it something that I wrote or somebody else?
A song.
Just a song, period? Okay.
Mhm.
So I say there's a song I wrote called Right Now. And the lyrics of the chorus of it, it just basically says, you only live one time and your time is right now. And that's how I live my life every day. It's like, do what's in me to do now because I'm alive now, and not put stuff off, hoping and, assuming that tomorrow's coming. So yeah, that's the song I would say.
The Power of Now. And the
Hmm.
name of the song again is
Right now.
Right Now. I love that. I love that. I love it. I love it. So our final question that I ask everybody
Okay.
is, what is your superpower?
I would say being grateful is my superpower. Living a life that is from like rooted in gratitude. That's my superpower.
That's a great one. That's a big one. That's a big one. Gratitude is a powerful tool for your toolkit,
Hmm.
and it's a great way to live your life. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your life, your stories, and your remarkable journey from such a beautiful space in your heart. And I pray that whatever direction you go into next will be just as remarkable as where you've been. And how can people plug into your world?
Wow. So, firstly, thank you for that. I appreciate you sincerely. So, I think the easiest way to reach me is you can go to my website at www.tashalarae.com, and any of the social channels, whatever is still popping at the time that you hear this, will be connected to the website. You can mostly find me, I think I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram. So on TikTok, I'm at Tasha Larae, and on Instagram is Miss Tasha Larae. So that's MS Tasha Larae.
And you can also add her and follow her on Spotify, which is where I listen to her music.
Yes, that's right. That's so bad. I forgot to plug the music. Yes. So the music is out. It's Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much any place that you get your music, I have music there.
Beautiful. Thank you again. I really appreciate your time. And you are welcome back anytime. And I can't wait to see where you go next.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, you too.
Welcome to the Afterglow with Monica Wisdom. Hello, family. I am so glad that you made it to the Afterglow, and I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Tasha. She was absolutely incredible and incredibly generous with her responses, and I really enjoyed talking to her. It's not very often you see someone who's a member of the iconic group share so much about herself or about themselves. It's normally the standard answers and the talking points that musicians do, but she opened up her heart. She was very vulnerable, and I really appreciate that she shared so much of herself, because I know you've seen her in videos and pictures, but we don't know much about her. And I enjoy her music as a house music artist, and I've been listening to her for years, and I never knew, like I said in the conversation, that she was a member of Arrested Development, which means I've seen her perform on stage because I've seen them several times. And I listen to the music, and I'm a great fan of Arrested Development. Arrested Development was one of those groups when I was young, in my early 20s, many moons ago. we had a sort of conscious movement in our community. There's an area in St. Louis called the Del Mar Loop. And there was a little section that had a Black bookstore and it had a vegan restaurant. And mind you, this was long before all of this was popular as it is now. And there was a vegan restaurant. There was a Ethiopian restaurant, Jamaican restaurant called the Red Sea. And then there was the first natural hair care salon in St. Louis, and one of the very few around the world that specifically focused on natural hair. And it was opened by a woman named Akat. She's since passed away. And so you would go there and get braids and locks, but from high fashion. And she learned many of her techniques from New York and traveled around to learn the intricacies of natural hair. So one of the people or the groups that was our soundtrack, aside from the classics of Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, was Arrested Development. So when they entered the scene, it was like they were dressed in the Afrocentric garb, they were wearing natural hair, and they spoke the language that we spoke. And the little area called Del Mar Loop was like our little Brooklyn. You could go down there and get a great book from authors that were not at the library. So Black bookstores were always a central core of where we would hang out. And we'd have poetry readings and performances of people that, spoke our language. And it was very much a deep dive. And it was our version of the soul power movement of the 60s and the 70s. So the James Brown, I'm Black and I'm Proud movement, this was our version of that. And it expanded out beyond just afros. We were wearing locks and braids and Afrocentric conversations and understanding our connection to the continent. So Arrested Development was very much a part of that movement, as well as the neo-soul movement when Erykah Badu first came out and Michelle Nagay-Nacello first came out and Maxwell first came out, when they were performing, $10 shows in these little bitty clubs. And it was the alternative to the boy bands and New Edition and people like that. So when we saw Arrested Development, it was like we were at every single show. And Tasha was not one of the first singers. It was Dionne Farris and Nadira Shakur and other women, but they always had a place for each type of personality within the group of Arrested Development. But I learned of Tasha listening to house music, because y'all know I love me some house music, and I worked in the industry with Yoruba Records for 10 years. So I was able to, hear these incredible artists, some of their music that never came out. And DJ Spin is one of my favorite DJs. And he, on his show, he does a gospel house set on YouTube every Sunday. And so her music was always a part of it, as well as on the dance floor. And she has covered some classic music that turned into house. So I always loved her voice and I knew her music. And so when I found out that those were the same people, I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And I started following her on TikTok. And that's how I connected with her, was on TikTok. And I just hey, I would love to interview you. Not saying it wasn't a proper pitch. And she was like, I love that. And we had the conversation. And I really, really think that she's a dynamic woman. And she's living her dreams and coming from a place of, a place that didn't look like us, and then deep into the culture of who we are, dipping into Atlanta, which back in the day was our Mecca. I couldn't wait to go to Atlanta because you saw us. The non-monolithic version of Black people is when you went to Atlanta. You saw entrepreneurs and business owners and hustlers, and all the people were in Atlanta. And when I would go, I would either be with the hair people or I would be with the creative artsy people. And I even did an event in Atlanta called Soul's Kiss. And we would bring in artists and they would have performances. And we had Nadira was our first host, Nadira Shakur. And then one of our hosts was Vinx. And I can't remember the rest of it. That was so long ago. But anyway, Tasha is just a dynamic woman, and I really appreciate her vulnerability. And just to hear her story and how she really believed in herself and her talent and her ability. And she went for it in every opportunity she gave of herself. She first started in gospel, and then when she showed up, she didn't know she was auditioning for Arrested Development. And that moment that she performed, just being herself, it walked her into becoming a part of this dynamic group. But she's able to maintain her individuality in her music and who she is. And I just loved, I keep saying I love, but Black women are so dynamic. We are just so dynamic. And it's important to me on this podcast to showcase women who we don't see out there. Not everybody is Viola Davis, and not everybody is, Nicki Minaj, and not everybody is Megan Thee Stallion, and not everybody is Angela Davis. There are so many lanes in between all of those spaces. And I want to fill up those spaces where people that you don't often see and go often unheard. And most people reduce that to like marginalized people. I don't personally think we're marginalized. I think we're misunderstood. And so through this podcast, I hope that we get an understanding of who we are within ourselves, who we are within our communities, and who we are within our world. And we see this. And the other fascinating thing about this conversation that was so profound to me is we recorded this the day after the election results. And we talked about 30 minutes before about how we were feeling about how everything had happened. It was just sister girl to sister girl. I had never had a conversation with this woman. What did Mariah Carey say? I don't know her. I didn't know her, but there was something in that moment that I think both we understood and we knew that like we were all on the same playing field at that moment. We were just Black girls who felt like what happened should not have happened, and how are we going to deal with this? So in that moment, we were equal, and that's what I loved about her, is no ego, just a beautiful, beautiful person. There was nothing that read superstar, and she's a superstar. You might not know who she is, but she travels the world and sings her music, and there's nothing more super and bright and brilliant than that, to live your dream and live your passion. But in that moment, we were just girls talking to each other, and then we walked into the conversation. So I hope that gives you a little insight about our conversation and how I felt coming out of it. It was just, I think it was a beautiful moment, and I can't wait until you hear the next conversation. Like I said, we're going to have more solo conversations so that I can talk directly to you, especially in this space that we're going into now. I think it's more important than ever that we galvanize in positive spaces to feed our soul. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. Listen, make sure you check out the website, join our email list at www.blackwomenamplified.com. There's going to be a lot of information that I put in the website, in the emails, and in our broadcast via email that will not be on the website, because I understand the climate that we're moving into. So just be mindful and be aware that we're going back to Gen X land. Not everything is for public consumption. I'll just say that. But be loud and bold and be all that you can be in every space that you're in. Never shrink, always shine. And remember that you have a space in Black Women Amplified where you are seen, loved, adored, admired, and appreciated. Have an amazing day, and I'll check you out on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Black Women Amplified. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to subscribe and log on to blackwomenamplified.com for more information. Keep shining.